All right, welcome everyone to Friday's breakout session number 2 for the Ethical Accountability track of the AI OER Institute 2026. This one is titled AI in Open Education, Navigating Moral Dissonance, and is being presented by Mandi Goodsett. She, her is the Performing Arts and Humanities Librarian, as well as the Open Educational Resource and Copyright Advisor at Cleveland State University. She serves as an Ohio Link Affordable Learning Ambassador and as an instructor for the Open Education Network Certificate in OER Librarianship. I thought I said leadership. Librarianship. Her research interests include open education, media literacy in library instruction, and sustainability in libraries. Mandi Goodsett, we are happy to have you here at the Institute.
Thank you so much. Okay, let me share my screen. So wonderful to see you all here and so many names that I recognize. Um, right. There we go. I think we're good now. Hello, it's so wonderful to see you all again. My name is Mandi, and I'm a librarian at Cleveland State University. And I'm going to be talking about navigating moral dissonance when it comes to generative AI and open education. And these are just ideas that I have, and I would really love to hear what you all think. I feel like putting this together has been kind of like personal therapy for me, so maybe this is just a me problem, but I would love to get your perspectives on all of this. I want to give some disclaimers at the beginning. I have been an active member of the Open Ed community for about 9 years now, and I'm really active at the state level. I'm involved in the Open Education Network in various ways, and I'm also a member of the Doers AI Working Group. I don't know if any of the other members are here today. So I've been thinking a lot about AI and how it intersects with open. I'm also involved on my campus with AI related things. So I am an AI ambassador, quote unquote. I am a planning committee member for our annual AI symposium in the spring, and I'm also on the advisory board for our AI teaching and learning lab. So I'm thinking about AI in other contexts, but then I also need to say that I am very active in the sustainability and library space. And I think I saw Renee here, and there might be others here also active in that space. So I'm a board member for the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. I was coordinator for ALA's Sustainability Roundtable, and I was the founder of like our state ACRL chapter's sustainability interest group. So when I talk about moral dissonance, this is very much the situation for me and something that I'm thinking about a lot when I consider my own values. All of that said, this session is meant to encourage discussion, not to actually like mete out like moral judgments on anyone here. And it also probably will not, it's not going to tell you what the right thing to do is or provide definite answers. It's really meant to spark discussion. And I'm hoping that the discussion will get you thinking about AI use in open, but I think anytime we talk about AI and education, it spills over into other contexts as well. So hopefully it gives you a framework to just think about this in a broader way. Okay, so here's time for some interaction in the chat if you're up for it. Whether or not you're a faculty member, what would you say are the biggest barriers to OER adoption in your experience? Go ahead and put whether you support faculty or you are a faculty member, what are those barriers? Okay, time, lack of awareness. A lot of folks saying time. Time. Time and amount of work. Lack of faculty time. Faculty resistance. Resources. Lack of appropriate material. Lack of ancillaries. Okay, poor communication. Takes time. Missing the materials to adopt. Time and support. Ooh, they want to be paid to write. I'm not necessarily going to be able to help with that problem today. Resistance. wanting to use commercial platforms, need the infrastructure, not knowing how to make a textbook, lack of instructional design support, lack of materials. Okay. Wait, we can get paid to write? Oh, wow. What an idea. Okay. Um, well, when I do workshops and that sort of thing on my campus, these are kind of the three that come up the most. And I think they came up maybe the most in the chat here too. So one is that an OER that works for my class just doesn't exist. It's maybe the things that are out there are not a perfect match, or I don't feel like they're the high enough quality as the instructor. Another of the challenges is lack of ancillary materials. So I can find a textbook that works, but I can't find the, quiz questions. I need that structure of like a homework platform, whatever, because I work with so many students. It's too difficult. And then the last one is what you're saying, time, time, time. I work with faculty and I've never seen them so stressed out. Like there's so many things they need to worry about, like with the accessibility stuff, other things related to AI. In my own state, they have, political pressures that they have to deal with. So um, adding another thing is just exhausting. Like they just don't have time. So one thing that occurred to me is, can generative AI just solve all of these problems? Well, if OERs don't exist for every subject, maybe generative AI tools can make materials that meet our exact specifications, that are customized exactly to what the gaps are that we're seeing in other content. Lack of ancillary materials, no problem. It can take primary content and quickly and easily make ancillaries based on that content, and save us a lot of time. Switching course material takes time. Well, in theory, generative AI can make that process a lot quicker and a lot easier so that we can fit it in among all the other things that we're trying to do if that is something that we value. And if we think about the strengths of generative AI, they kind of match up with these kinds of projects. So AI outputs, it works best if you have an expert actually judging those outputs because we know that they can be wrong. Well, a person teaching a class and using a textbook in theory should be the expert on that subject. They should be able to very carefully evaluate it and make sure it's accurate. The way that AI works is it kind of takes a lot of knowledge and it kind of figures out, uh, what the general consensus is and it distills it down for you. Well, that's kind of what a textbook is already doing. It's really providing that common knowledge for everybody. And it can work quickly, it can be very efficient, and it can even customize things to different audiences. So, for example, maybe I have a class, I figure out characteristics about my students, I can customize my open content to those specific students and to maybe their context or their location or whatever it is about them. So it seems like generative AI aligns with a lot of these strengths. However, I do find this, and maybe this is just me, but a lot of people in the open education community are hesitant to embrace generative AI. And I think there are some good reasons for that that we're going to explore. Um, but it, I think the fact that generative AI seems like a great fit creates this really, really strong tension in our community. And that's what I'm trying to explore. That's what I'm trying to understand. I'm going to take a quick pause and check the chat. Make sure there's no questions or anything.
There was a question about
Aha.
printing materials.
Okay, let me see if I can find that.
Jameson Lee says losing print materials leads to lower comprehension from students. Do I force them to print the textbook? Something I've been considering.
That is a great question. I don't know that my presentation has the answer, but I think that would be a great thing for folks. We've got a really great community here, so if anybody wants to talk about that in the comments, it is a good question. So taking a look at the first thing I wanted to do was see like what is the community saying? What is the open ed community saying about AI? And this is just scratching the surface. It's just some things that I found, but there are, I'm sure, lots of other things that I missed, and I did not make it to the keynote today. So even in this event. There's probably a lot to add to this list. First, I looked at some institutional responses. So many of you probably know that MIT had their AI plus Open Education initiative in 2024 and 2025. And when I looked at that, it really seemed that they were not exploring like, should AI be used in open? It was more supporting projects that were already integrating AI into open. Um, Full disclosure, I was involved a little bit in this next one. So Doers hired two consultants, so Meredith Jacob and Will Cross, to create this report. They did a bunch of focus groups and asked people in the community about their experience with generative AI and open education. And this report was kind of the result, which I think is really useful. If you haven't read it, I encourage you to read it. Maybe I can put that in the chat for you all. But I think one of the big takeaways from that there is some tension, but there was a takeaway that accessibility is a really important consideration when it comes to AI, and that maybe would um, be an important consideration if we were thinking of not using it in the classroom or not introducing AI literacy. Creative Commons released CC signals, which is a way to indicate whether a creator would like their work to be used by AI systems. So it's not the same as the actual licenses, but it's kind of more indicating preferences in this specific context, which I think is interesting. And then OER Commons recently released some guidelines for AI use for content that's posted on their platform. So kind of a hodgepodge of different approaches and thoughts about AI. I wanted to share some of the somewhat supportive voices. So David Wiley has obviously always been a bit of a controversial figure in our field, and he has shared a lot of his thoughts about how AI could almost replace the traditional textbook and become something that is completely customized to what students need so that they would approach learning not by opening a textbook, but by opening a chatbot and having a conversation. Lance Eaton, Anna Mills, and Maha Bali also have been somewhat supportive of AI in open ed. And that article link there kind of presents open as like an approach that is a shock absorber when it comes to AI. And then Lance Eaton and Larry Davis actually this year released a generative AI and OER adoption framework. So very supportive of the idea of integrating AI into OER. Liza Long, who is a friend and who I love, she is very pro AI. I think she would agree with me. And she sees how AI could be a way to um, co-create OER content. And Maha Bali, I think on this list is maybe the most critical, but she's really seen how AI can be useful when we are transparent and, using critical thinking. But of course, there are a lot of concerned voices, and these are just a few. This 2024 study is a Delphi study. It includes many, many voices, and they do explore some of the positives of generative AI, but they have this long list of negatives. This isn't even all of them. The digital divide, bias, ethical considerations, academic integrity, misinformation, loss of human values, loss of agency, lack of transparency, impact on critical thinking, privacy risks, environmental impact, knowledge degradation, and Aksoy and Kirsten have a similar examination. And then I think this post by Ben Williamson is even more kind of negative in terms of really pointing out the issues with AI. And these are real, legitimate issues. So I think when I read these things, even the ones that are a little more positive do have undertones of worry and concern, hesitancy, maybe not being fully confident to share what we're doing or what our opinion is about AI. The sense that AI is inevitable, like I don't have any agency, a sense of urgency, and then also occasionally, not a lot, but some defensiveness, like this is like feeling like I need to defend my position about AI in the open ed community. And I think there's a really good reason for that. There are a lot of blatant tensions between OER values and AI concerns. In the open ed community, we value equity. These tools promote algorithmic bias. In the open ed community, we value transparency. A lot of these tools are built on models that are opaque and proprietary. We support open licensing, and this is where I've kind of simplified it here, proprietary training data, but there's also like use of content that is not openly licensed, use of materials without the creator's permission, that really goes against the ethos of our community. Open ed supports sustainability. AI has an environmental cost, which I'm happy to talk with anyone about later if you're interested. I have a whole other presentation about that. Open ed supports labor justice. AI involves data extraction, the lack of privacy, and also invisible labor. So people doing labor and it's not totally clear to us. So these are really real tensions that are in place between AI and open education community, despite all of those really amazing things that AI can do for us. And I think, and there are other concerns too. I think today we are dealing with a world where we lack ownership of digital content to the extent that um, I think for those who think about it a lot, we have lost trust for these companies. They don't provide us with access to content that is guaranteed. And in general, we don't trust them because they have a history of not of taking our data and not being responsible. And that I think runs deep in our community as well. There's a lack of reliable, relevant data as well. And this, of course, I think about the environmental impacts of AI, but just in other ways as well. These companies don't necessarily have an incentive to collect important data that would help us make better decisions about whether we should use AI or not. And that makes it very difficult for us to make a decision. So, and then finally, I think there's a tension here between accessibility and education. So I thought about this a lot. I think for some students, it's very clear that AI really fills a gap for them and allows them to excel in a way that they couldn't, based on a difference that they have from other students. But for some students, AI provides a way to kind of circumvent learning. And then I think there's a huge gray area where we have students who are like, well, I never really liked reading. I don't feel like I'm that good at it. I don't really think I'm going to do a job that requires reading. Isn't it okay for me to take this shortcut and use AI? Is that helping me succeed in a place where I wouldn't have before? Or is that circumventing learning that was actually quite important for me? And I think in a lot of cases, the students are really just trying to figure out that themselves. And it creates a lot of complexity when we're trying to decide whether AI is a good thing or not. And that brings me to moral dissonance. What is moral dissonance? It's a psychological conflict arising when actions are incongruent with personal beliefs. And it's a form of cognitive dissonance that really focuses on when the conflict has to do with values. And I see it as when somebody feels unable to act in ways that align with their values. So, not so much when we're doing something that we know is wrong, but more that we feel forced to do it. We feel unable to navigate the world in ways that align with our values. And I have thought a lot about this. I can think of a lot of examples in our modern life. We have moral dissonance everywhere. Um, I try to make decisions that are sustainable, but a lot of systems in our world are built so that the sustainable option is just not possible, or it is not the default option. If I want to go to a conference, my university is going to assume that I'm going to fly. They're going to compensate flying. They're not going to compensate me taking a train or driving there. So it's really difficult for me to act in alignment with my values there. The privacy paradox, this is pretty well studied at this point. A lot of people, when you ask them, do you care about your privacy? They say, yes, of course I do. But then when they're in these contexts where they feel forced to violate their own privacy, they do that. So, if I need to get to this website or I need to download this app, and to do that, I have to give away my privacy, I might just do that. And so I'm not acting in alignment with my values there. And then this is one that is totally unrelated, but I think a lot about this and I'm doing other research about this. I ask students, what is the quality of information on TikTok? Is that really good quality information? They say, oh no, it's terrible. And then I say, okay, well, do you go on there? And they say, yeah, I do. And they spend a lot of hours there. And so, for various reasons, they're spending time in a place that doesn't align with their values. And I think it causes moral dissonance for them. And I want to be clear that often this conflict comes because we have systems in place that benefit some people, but not other people. They benefit a few people to the disadvantage of a whole lot of other people. And I think there's also times when there's conflicting values. Like I have two values, they're not compatible. I have to kind of choose. And I also want to make it clear that sometimes that has to do with convenience. And convenience is something that is so embedded in our world that choosing convenience isn't just something that's like, oh, I'm going to be lazy and choose convenience. It's almost like the modern life relies on you choosing convenience. You can't always pick the better way because it simply is just not viable. I can't work full time and be a mom and cook all my meals, the way I would love to from scratch and do this and do that. It's just not possible in the modern world. So sometimes convenience does become the value that is more important, which I think is really relevant to generative AI as well. Okay, so getting back to generative AI, I think that this is not totally relevant to open education, but I do feel like when I look at surveys of students, they say they're using generative AI and they're using it for schoolwork. And when I talk to them, they hate AI. They really hate it. They can't stand it. I learned a new term yesterday, AI vegans. So some of them are calling themselves AI vegans. So they know about the ethical issues, especially the environmental issues, the issues for creators. They're worried that AI is going to make their jobs obsolete. So, but they're still using it. So I think that their actions are not always lining up with their values and they're having this experience of moral dissonance. Oops. And then for faculty and staff, I think it's similar. We're feeling a lot of pressure to understand and use AI, and we're also feeling a lot of nervousness. I think a lot of faculty are worried about cognitive offloading and things like that. So they're kind of dealing with this tension. Okay, what are the results of feeling that moral dissonance? Feelings of shame, like whether we recognize them overtly or not, feelings of anxiety, constantly doing things that are in violation of what I really wish I was doing. Also, different kinds of rationalization, which I'll talk about, avoiding the topic altogether, avoiding the issue altogether. And then I think a really big one, especially for young people, is cynicism. Like Gen Z is so cynical. Like they just have really given up on the world that adults have created for them. And it's hard not to blame them. But it's really dangerous for them to feel that kind of cynicism about the world. Um, so these results of moral dissonance are not so great. There's also, when it comes to rationalization, there's something called ethical flexibility. That's when people kind of restructure their moral reasoning to align their actions with the desired outcome. So they might feel like, oh, I really want to use AI for this. And instead of really examining my values and digging into it, I'm going to kind of just recharacterize the problems with AI and say they're not a big deal or this is why they're not a problem. So it's a method of justifying actions rather than holding yourself accountable. And so we're going to talk about ways to hold yourself accountable. Just very briefly, I want to emphasize I am not saying anyone in the open ed world is rationalizing their AI use. I think there are really good reasons to use it. But I think if we're going to do it, we should not be relying on any of these kinds of rationalization. So one is free choice paradigm, which is kind of what I was just talking about, where we justify our behavior by recharacterizing choices. So it seems like I'm making a free choice because I have changed the choices to make them or recharacterize them to make them seem more palatable. Belief disconfirmation paradigm is basically like confirmation bias. So I'm resisting information that contradicts my beliefs. And I see this sometimes when people are really avid AI users, but people tell them, oh, but what about the environmental impacts? Like they are able to find some information about it that confirms that their use is okay, but they've ignored a whole lot of other information that puts some of that into question. So they're picking and choosing information based on their existing beliefs. Effort justification paradigm, that's when if you put a lot more effort into something, you're going to justify it more. So if you put a lot of effort into your AI use, even if it's like really not working out, you might be more tempted to justify that use. And then finally, induced compliance paradigm, which is kind of counterintuitive, but like when external pressure is lower, we justify our behavior more. So it's almost easier when someone's forcing us to do it, but when it's us choosing to do it, then we are much more inclined to try to justify the behavior that we're doing. So these are all things we want to avoid. We want to be clear-eyed and we want to be careful about really identifying what our values are and choosing what to do. So this is just my own framework for dealing with this. And so others may have other ideas as well. But this is for any sort of AI issue, I would say. There are just three questions. What is true? What matters? And what will I do? And that's it. So, what is true? I think it's really important when it comes to AI to make decisions based on what is happening now that I know about or what has happened, not on predictions that others have made, because predictions are not facts, they are predictions. And so, you know, if somebody says AI is going to be involved in everything and every single career is going to need it, we might want to ask, like, who is making that prediction and does it benefit them to make that prediction? Um, and then the other thing is what Ethan Malik calls the jagged frontier. So, what is AI actually good for? What is it good at? And what is it actually not that good at? And maybe another tool would work. And let's actually be clear about when AI is a good choice. And then what matters? Values clarification. I think it's helpful to name the values intention and be candid. I think for a lot of cases, those values are, it's just inevitable there's going to be tension. There's going to be moral dissonance to some degree. But if we can name the values intention, we can be intentional about saying, you know what, in this case, I have all these problems with AI, but this other value is really important to me. And so I think my AI use is justified. And then you can move forward with confidence without that shame or anxiety or hedging or any of those things. So that comes to exercise agency. What will I do? Make it a well-intentioned, considered decision. And then consider other options as well so that you can decrease that moral tension if it's possible. And I think that comes back to like what are the facts? What is AI actually good at? So this first one, what is true, helps us with the free choice paradigm because instead of recharacterizing our choices, we're really looking at them clearly. And instead of that confirmation bias, we are seeing the evidence clearly. We're really looking at the evidence. We're not being like folks who I have seen who are like, well, I have some information about the environmental impacts of AI, but I'm going to ignore this other information. I'm going to look at it all and then still make my decision. Values clarification. So seeing our values clearly. So if something does take more effort and it doesn't work out, well, let's go back to values and is this worth it according to my values? And then finally, exercising agency that avoids the induced compliance paradigm. So even if it's no one's forcing me, if I'm choosing to do this, I'm going to take ownership of my action because I have thought through what is true and what matters to me, and I'm going to go forward. Okay, you can see how this is kind of like therapy for me. Um, as I said, look for alternatives that reduce tension. I think transparency is really important, and that helps if you feel more confident about what you're doing. And modeling responsible use is so important as well. Oh, I'm sorry, everyone. My internet, I think, is not so great. Um, there's also a couple of links there. One is to a tool some of you may have already heard of. Carrie Weaver developed it, and then KPU used it in an open textbook, and I think it's a really helpful model of how to say, here's exactly how I used AI in my work, and here's how, here's, the extent for each sort of task that I used it. So I think it's really helpful. Sam Illingworth talks a lot about slow AI, so embracing reflection, care, taking time, not feeling that urgency to decide right now and to get going right now. Um, and then always, no matter what you're doing, advocating for human values and decision making. So, what is best for human flourishing? That should be at the basis of everything. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second and check this very busy chat. Um, I'm trying to, there's so much here. I'm sorry, there's just a lot here. So
Let
if
me see
I'm
if I
missing,
can. I saw some good questions, and then we just kind of
thank
got off
you.
into side conversations. But and if anybody has a question, feel free to hop off right now if Mandy's looking for anything to answer. Oh, here's one from Michael Diaz. What frameworks are we using to think about these moral problems?
So uh, I provided the rationalization framework, and then I provided the one that I made up, with the three questions. So that's kind of what I'm working from. But if others, so I see Jim has a recommendation of Pope Leo's encyclical. I think that's, a really great one to check out. There may be others that people know of, that you can check out. This is thank you, Stacy, for giving props to my article. I really appreciate that. Okay, here's another question. As educators who educate everyone in society, shouldn't we be more responsible and decisive about any tool that can be controversial to the proper ways of realizing the mission of education? Um, I I'm hoping I'm understanding this question. So I think you're talking about like maybe it's not so much an individual moral qualm as one that's related to our profession as educators. And I think that's a really great point. I think um, as we consider what our values are, we should definitely consider what the values are of our work and what it is we're trying to do. Um,
We have one that just came in. Is there a link to the slides?
yes,
Do,
it will provide a link at the end. I have one, and you're
okay, great.
very, very welcome to check it out. Okay, I'm gonna keep going, but keep keep the questions coming, and I will try. I will try. Oh, here. Okay. Oh, there's a question here. Your leaning, Mandy, is to help people find ways to enter into or move through ethical dissonance with these three questions as the guiding post so that dissonance can be positive growth space. Just clarifying. Yes, yes. I don't think that the dissonance can be totally removed, but I think it can be, like you're saying, a positive growth space. And I think we can move through it in a healthier way. And again, this is like therapy for myself because I've gone through a lot of moral dissonance in the past few years with this. And I think it's just so much um, more impactful and empowering to say, like, let me truly reflect about this and be transparent and use metacognition and all of this stuff before I move forward, rather than kind of like what I was doing is like sneakily sometimes using AI, not being sure if I should say if I was or not. Like, I think it's much healthier to say, well, these are my values. Right now, my value is like AI is not appropriate for this. I don't want to use it. Or right now, maybe it is okay. I don't know if that's helpful. So I have a case study that I thought might be interesting for us to explore together. And I'm sorry it's kind of long, but I'll read it to you. And then I would love to hear what you all think. Okay. Preston is a biology professor at a small community college. His teaching load is huge, but he really wants to create an open biology textbook that examines the impacts of climate change on ecosystems. It's important to him that this knowledge be shared publicly. He has serious reservations about generative AI because of the environmental impacts and the effects on creative workers. However, he doesn't think he can write an OER without some additional help. On his own, he uses AI to write the textbook, and then he decides to implement it in his class right away. He knows AI can be wrong, but he figures he'll catch the errors as he uses the book. He doesn't disclose that he used AI to write the book because he doesn't allow AI use in his class and he doesn't want to cause distress for his students. So, um, I would love to hear what you all think. we go through this kind of workflow of reflection, what is true? Are his concerns valid? Is AI as reliable as he thinks it is? Are there facts about this? Here, I'm going to go back so you can see it that are problematic. We have an oh boy. Okay. And we have a great point that AI is a new problem that exposes old problems. Yes. And you can see that there's a lot of moral dissonance happening already. Maybe I'll ask this. So, do you think he did the right thing? What are some things you would have done differently? Has he really considered all his options? If he has a problem with AI, what would you advise him to do if he talked to you before he went forward with his project? Ooh, I like this idea. He could have written with his students. Yeah, I think that would be really fun and could be a good learning experience for them. Should disclose his use and make it clear that he's just in the testing phase. And at least one person says that's not a good excuse to put out materials that might be wrong. Okay, he's a hypocrite. He's going to pay for it. Okay. If students don't know he used AI, they might suspect it anyways. It will negatively impact their relationship regardless. Yeah. Review, edit before teaching. Disclose why and how he used it. Take a more nuanced approach to his students' understanding and use of AI. Yes. Okay. Oh, and we have a great resource being shared from Hillsborough College AI OER creation program. Oh, yes. And I think I've heard about this. So kind of we're actually having, so this was something I was hoping would come up. He didn't ask for any help. He didn't talk to anyone. He didn't talk to his librarian. He didn't see if maybe there already is a book about that and he could start there and work with it and modify it. Um, okay, I appreciate this was well-intentioned, but not a good plan. Nothing else we can't ask our students to use ethically if we don't model it. Yes, I think there's a little bit of him not being clear about his values, and so then maybe hiding some of his behavior in a way that's not helpful to his students. I wouldn't condone this poor review of materials. I think it can be valuable for teachers. Teachers' use of AI is not comparable to students. Yes, right. I think that is an important point. Like students are learners, so their use of AI is different than the use of an expert. But I do think people are making good points about how transparency is still important. And that's maybe something that he needed to surface so that he could be more transparent with his students, is really understanding, like, in this case, my use has a different impact than your use would in the classroom. Okay. Ooh, yeah, I like that. He could let the students know this is AI generated work and they could, part of what they're doing could be to critique it.
Yeah, I was going to point that one out too. I thought that was a clever use of almost like open pedagogy where they're it's kind of that idea you pointed out before where they're kind of co-creating it with them. So you've got this
Mm-hmm.
AI response, and I think it's a great way to show your students like, this AI stuff sounds right, it looks good, but you really have to double check and, laterally read and make sure that all of these claims are true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could be an important learning moment. Um, I'm seeing we have guidelines to recommend transparency in how it is being used. I think where it's getting tough is to be torn between multiple frameworks. Um, yes, wanting transparency and caution on AI while my institution is encouraging faculty to use in other ways to use AI, guiding faculty on what needs to be done. Yes, guidelines are so important, but they're hard too because of all these different pressures and because the guidelines don't help us with the moral tension that's underneath. That is something we have to work through ourselves as well. He needs a librarian. Yeah, he needs a librarian. Of course, that's going to be Trust is the issue cutting in all directions. Great point. So if I go to the next page, it seems like there's some values and tension here. He's worried about AI, but he wants to make sure this content gets out there. I think there are ways he could work with his librarian to see what options there are, but let's say there aren't any other options. It's very possible he may choose that sharing this information openly with the world is more valuable is the value that is kind of in the place of primacy here. And so I'm going to move forward with my project. But then he could be less sneaky about it. He could model, like we were saying, some of that transparency and trust with his students. Um, and make sure, like you were all saying, it could be a learning experience for them, but make sure that he's being clear about what he's doing. Okay, I'm gonna go, I think I have one more, and I think we have enough time for it. We'll do it really fast. Okay, Susanna teaches a sociology course for undergraduate students. She's hoping to have her students do an open pedagogy project, but she's conflicted about the role of AI in the assignment. She's concerned about AI contributing to cognitive offloading. That said, she wants her students' work to be very high quality because it will be seen by a broad audience. She decides to allow AI use with disclosure. However, she's upset to see during grading time that some of her students clearly used AI without disclosing it. She decides that doing an open pedagogy project is not worth the frustration, and she's just going to do a more AI-proof assignment next time instead. So, what do you all think? Do you think she set her students up for success with this? Is there more she could have done to um, provide some AI literacy for her students so this wouldn't happen? Is it true that using AI will result in higher quality work for the students? And what is she communicating to them about the point of this assignment? Right, I'm trying to find the stuff about this. Yes, a good lesson in how much control you don't have. Yeah. Did the students know it would be a project widely shared? Did she explain the reasoning? Yes, if they understand the goal, they're much more engaged. Yeah, so then maybe it's possible that they would be more invested to write it themselves, or they might be more worried and they might rely on AI more. Seems there's confusion here between AI use and AI disclosure. She needs to clarify her expectations. Yes, so if she's allowing it with disclosure and they're using it without the disclosure, then it could be that they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to disclose or they don't understand the value. And yeah, so she may need to provide some expectations that are more clear. What's really true? I find it uncomfortable when people say they clearly used AI. How do you know that? Excellent question. That's maybe something that we don't know is true in this case. Did they use AI? How does she know that? How could she know that? Susanna contributed to her students' education, but the results and impact take more time than a semester. Okay, so maybe she's kind of overestimating what the takeaways would be for her students in this one single semester. Where is the AI literacy in this example for the faculty and the students? Yeah, it could be that she doesn't totally understand how to integrate AI into her assignment in a more intentional way by just saying, you can do what you want, just disclose. Maybe there's some way to do it that is more supportive, and she needs the AI literacy herself to do that well. Okay, I know I am running out of time, but you all are bringing up really great points. I think some of them come up here. These are just questions to think about, like, do students know how to disclose their use? Is it true that if they use AI, is that going to be, more reliable content by default? I think that's a that's a assumption a lot of folks make, that if it's from AI, that means that's the authoritative, correct answer. And that may not be true. If she's worried about cognitive offloading, how has she designed an assignment that's going to avoid that? It doesn't seem like maybe she has thought that through. And what does she ultimately want them to learn from the assignment? Is it about getting the right answer? Is it about the exploration of the content, which is not necessarily reflected in how she's designed it right now? So some things to think about. Okay, here are my final thoughts. and then we might have a few minutes for questions. I think that guilt, shame, cynicism, and apathy abound in our modern world. This is kind of a bold claim, but it's just something that I'm noticing in a lot of contexts. And I think that that can lead to inaction, avoidance, and poor mental health, which are not good for us. But if we can surface and examine the tensions that AI presents to open education and to education in general, I think we can have the opportunity to move forward with intention, confidence, and positivity in a way that we couldn't if we were stuck in that place of guilt and shame. So I'm going to share the link to my slides, but I think we have 4 minutes for questions or other thoughts.
Yeah, we can go to the top of the hour. So I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat, and I agree the case studies, those are great. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to hop off mute and ask Mandy.
I'm noticing lots of really great comments. Um, I thought Jim's comment was great. I wonder about this disclosure talk. So if you disclose, does it wipe away all the sin? Does it replenish the resources wasted? I think that's a great point. Like disclosure is important, but it isn't an antidote to the negatives. So we still have to unfortunately think through the moral tension. And yeah, I like this. It's a step forward compared to just denying using it, which I think is important. Yeah, kind of similar to land acknowledgements. They have a usefulness, but it's limited in terms of real world impact. So it's a really great point. Yes, you're welcome to use the case studies. I should openly license this. I didn't use AI to make them. I used my own brain to make them. So I'm happy, anyone wants to use them or share them, please feel free. And I think it would be useful. I don't know. I feel like on my own campus, there's a lot of, um, you know, dissonance about AI in general. And so I've actually used case studies as a way to help faculty and students think through and surface their own values when it comes to AI. And it's always really, really fun and interesting. And everybody leaves feeling a little less stressed out about it, I think. Disclosure doesn't always happen. In addition to teaching, I'm an instructional designer. I've used Gemini to produce examples and templates for students and just stopped asking that these be referenced because AI built because leadership ignores my citations and the templates just get used. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of changes as we go forward in terms of whether and in which situations people feel like they need to disclose their use of AI. So, yeah, potential discussions for faculty. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I think guidance is really important for faculty, and a policy is really helpful, but I think these kinds of discussions are also really helpful. Like if you're going to use AI for your OER project, let's talk about, how can we do it responsibly and think through all of these implications. Yes, please assume they're CC BY. CC BY. I will put a CC BY license on there. This is embarrassing that I have not done that. Can we legislate our way to responsible AI usage? Great question. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't really talk in this about like systemic solutions, but I think those are 100% part of what we should be working on.
And
Well,
I think
thank
the
you all. I hope,
conversation about it is important.
yes, right. I think being, being really clear with each other and having conversations instead of all of us individually stewing about it, I think is really important. Okay, I put my email in the chat in case you have other questions. Thank you all so much. I hope this was at least a little bit useful for you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Let's get some reactions here. I always love seeing those claps come up. That was great. Thank you for your time and your information and putting the slides in at the end. I hope everyone can get some good use out of those. All right, so That is going to conclude our Friday breakout number two. We got one more for the day, and then we have, of course, tomorrow another 4 hours of action-packed information. So I'm putting the link in the chat back to the what's that called? The lobby. So I'm gonna close this one. Hopefully y'all still have that up to join for the last session for today. And thank y'all for coming to this one.